An update to the injury reports for the Cup game in Miami. We give you the latest details coming up next on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. To all the everydayers and everybody that's just checking out the show on a somewhat regular basis, we thank everybody for pushing the network to that #1 spot. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Camille, you, would we say you drew the short straw and unfortunately had to take the reins on a fifth straight loss here? I told you before we started recording, sorry, I just didn't have it in me to subject myself to more discourse over the Bucks losing, so didn't have a chance to listen to it yet. I think I know what we're in for here. And there's a couple of updates that we're going to get to on today's show. I do want to touch on that too I'm not going to say there aren't some troubling things that have popped up here. I mean, I think first and foremost, the defense, right? Like the three of us all talked about it coming into the season that our expectations shifted to, you know what, I think this offense can end up being pretty good, but what's the baseline for the defense? And it was good for 5 games. I know it's a small sample size. I know it was early in the season. Outside of the Wizards, 4 of those teams were very good that they played, and their defense was good. And everything just kind of fell off a cliff. And it's not just Kevin Porter Jr. going down, because how do you explain the other 4 games there in that 5-game stretch? It's not Giannis going out because Giannis played in those games. And it's not like this defense just collapsed starting with the second half of the Cavs game. So that is certainly something to circle and say this has to improve. The rest of it, you can call me an optimist, a shill for the team that I work for, whatever it is. I'm just not there where the rest of a lot of Bucks fans are in terms of crashing out on this team, because realistically, what did you expect when this team is built around one player and he's not on the floor?
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm not mad, especially the offensive side of the ball for the Bucks, where it's like Giannis is so much of the engine there. I'm really not worried about that. And that was part of the conversation that Frank and myself had last night of are you more concerned about the offense or the defense? And we both said defense pretty quickly, pretty soundly, because of the fact that these issues were starting to creep up when Giannis was still healthy and playing for this Milwaukee Bucks team. But no, I didn't think that this would be a team that would be good without Giannis necessarily, because it's a team that is created. It was put together to be maximized by Giannis, and for Giannis to maximize them. It's supposed to work in tandem together. And without Giannis, it's going to be tough, right? And that would be with a healthy roster. But now you're looking at a roster here where you don't have Kevin Porter Jr. So on a team where you only had, going into the season, you thought 3.5 ball handlers, playmakers, shot creators to initiate the offense, with Giannis and Kevin Porter Jr., Cole Anthony, and Ryan Rollins. Because even going into the season, we were looking at Ryan Rollins more of a combo guard of hey, we know he's more of a combo guard. Don't really think he'll be initiating too often, especially hearing he's sharing the court with Cole Anthony, or at least that was the plan heading into the season. Things have changed, and Rollins has really taken advantage of his opportunity and shown so much more to his game. So it's nice to have him and Cole Anthony as ball handlers while Giannis is out, but that's really all that you have, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you need to get back to a spot where Cole Anthony is a luxury and not a necessity, and that's not going to happen until Kevin Porter Jr. comes back. I don't think Ryan Rollins has been as impactful defensively for the last 10 or so games. And I think it's easy to explain when you look at, especially the last 3.5, when you look at what he's being asked to do, when Giannis was on the floor in the minutes where Giannis is not out there. But in the 3.5 games since Giannis went down, that he's the guy. And if Cole Anthony doesn't have it that day, other teams know, like, this is it. So let's just pressure Ryan Rollins and make the Bucks use 7 seconds to cross half court. There's 17 seconds into their offense, into the clock before they get into their offense. And then we can really do some things defensively against them with just one initiator in the half court. So I think all of that is why we've seen fewer and fewer impactful defensive plays as we were seeing earlier in the season. And I expect those to continue to go up once Giannis and Kevin Porter Jr. returns. It's funny too, like I candidly, what Ryan Rollins is doing, I don't know if I'd say expected, but like a lot of that is what I foresaw from Kevin Porter Jr.
Really,
this season.
These heights.
Yeah. I believed that he's the second most talented player, and I still think he's the second most talented guy on the team, and that he was going to be extremely important to this team, that like 20-point games every now and then, and sometimes just taking over when Giannis wasn't on the floor. I thought that's what you're going to get from KPJ, and like you may still get some fraction of that when he returns. That's going to be the interesting thing, is like how does his role change, and like how do you slot him next to Ryan? Do we see a different starting lineup again, where it's like another, okay, let's go back to a small iteration, but it's those two guys and AJ. So those are all questions to be answered. It's, that's to me one of the not troubling things, but why I believe like, okay, we know what this offense can be, because what Ryan is doing offensively is what I largely expected to get from Kevin Porter Jr. this season. It's the defense is the biggest thing. And they're still very good in zone. And Doc has said like, well, early in the season, they weren't doing quite as much of it because, our best zone defenses are with Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr. on the floor, and we don't have KPJ. And then because of some of the other issues that we've seen bubble up, they just kind of had to lean into it out of necessity. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that progresses go forward. But I mean, it sounds like we're both aligned. Like, again, it's not to say like everything is fine. As soon as Giannis is back, full speed ahead, and this team is going to win 7 games and just propel themselves to like the 4 or 3 seed. There are definitely some warning signs that are out there and some causes for concern, but like just the level of full-on panic that I've seen here in the last, not even after the loss to the Blazers, but this whole stretch here, the panic that I've seen is what's really made me kind of reassess of like, I don't know, like, am I missing something when you don't have him on the floor? And also realistically, what were your expectations for this team this year? That's the other big thing that I keep coming back to.
And I think all of that is fair because we're, like you said, we're in alignment on that. Like this team without Giannis, I thought they'd be bad. I will say that they have looked worse at stretches than I expected.
They've looked worse than I thought it would be without.
Yeah, even without Giannis and even without Kevin Porter Jr., I was like, man, like this is looking really, really, really tough for these groupings out here, more so than what I expected. But again, like Doc kept saying he thinks there's going to be a silver lining, which is why I wanted to end yesterday's show with Frank of like, what are the silver linings that we've been able to find while Giannis has been out? And I was like, Ryan Rollins is the first one you point to, of course, of like just additional opportunity, even though he didn't have a great game against the Trailblazers last night. I think it's a valuable experience of being the main guy and getting pressured full court. Like I kind of laughed in post game when someone asked Ryan, like, you're playing against Portland and you saw Dame there and he dealt with that a lot last year. Like, have you picked it? And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna actually go back and watch some film of how Dame was trying to beat that last year to see what we can do about it. So I love that he's been put in the position, but the part again that troubles me more is on the defensive side of the ball, because even with Giannis out, it's the point of attack defense has been poor. It has been poor for this team. And the fouling is becoming it's already been a problem, but it's exasperated when you don't have the one guy on your team who can actually get to the free throw line himself to try to counter what's going on the other side with all of the excessive fouling. So that defense part for me is still like when Giannis and Kevin Porter Jr. comes back, I think that there are still things that are going to have to be figured out on how this team plays.
Pretty bad start to the show by us so far, because we teased the status change to the injury report. Haven't even gotten to it yet. It's instead just been a performance review that we've dug into here for the Bucks through these 18 games. You mentioned a couple things I do want to continue the discussion on, but we will get to the bigger news of the day and the change to the injury report. We'll do so next on Locked On Bucks. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, of future rent payments, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. You earn points every month on something you already have to pay. So whether you're grabbing food at your local restaurant, heading to the gym, or even doing things out and about in the town, you're still earning rewards. Built makes everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt, BILT.com/lockedonnba, and make sure to use the link so they know we sent you. Okay, so I mentioned there's a couple other things I did want to dig into. We'll see if we get to them, because I think we've talked about it ad nauseum so far. The big news is, and I don't know how big it is, but the change to the injury report is Giannis has been upgraded to questionable for the game against the Miami Heat later on tonight. And I'm just going to say I don't expect him to play unless something has happened in the last, as we sit here and record this, 24 hours basically since we heard from Doc Rivers prior to the Blazers game. I don't think he's playing. I think it's a positive sign that he's trending towards it. And Doc seemed to leave the door open for maybe we'll see him and or KPJ on Friday against the Knicks. I don't have the quote in front of me, but basically he said yesterday Giannis was going to make the trip, and he did not expect him to play in Miami. Probably going to miss the game in New York. Same for KPJ, but closed it with something like, who knows? Maybe things will change, though, because they are very, very close. Now, we've heard other players being very close before in this organization. It seems to have a very fluid meaning. So I wouldn't put too much hope into that. Based on what he told us yesterday in that at 5:15 when Doc met with the media prior to the Blazers game, doubtful was the words, and maybe even stronger than that he used in terms of would he play against the Miami Heat. So I think he's still going to miss the game, but it's just okay, maybe this means there's a pretty decent chance he can play on Friday. The unfortunate thing, before you share your thoughts, Camille, is this game tomorrow is more important than the Knicks game, which we'll get into in a second here in terms of the NBA Cup.
Yeah, and that could be why we know Giannis is like a super healer, so to speak.
I was wondering, frankly, if Darvin Ham was just going to suit up to say, look, somebody's got to keep this streak alive, so I gotcha.
Shoot, who knows at this point? But we know he's a quick healer, but when dealing with something like a soft tissue injury with a groin injury, that's one of those ones where I'm like, hey, like, just no need to rush back from this. You don't want to mess up anything further. It's not like a sprained wrist or something like that. You're dealing with tissue, so you need to be a little bit more careful. But I was wondering when I saw the questionable upgrade of like, is it because it's a cup game? And it's like, hey, this is a very, very important one based on where we are in the standings right now. Want to give it a go, because the broadcast also mentioned during the Blazers game that Giannis and KPJ were warming up ahead of the game. And then the Doc comments about him being close. And as you mentioned, we know what pretty close can mean for the Bucks. I was thinking, based on Doc saying like not Miami and probably not New York either, I was like, okay, probably then maybe not the Nets game, because they're going to have a back-to-back on Saturday right after the Knicks game, but maybe the following game is when they come back. But if Giannis does play in Miami, one, I will, again, just shocked just how quickly he's coming back from that. And I'll have a little bit of worry in my heart of just like, listen, I hope everything is. You
can't even put it out there.
That's just how I'll be feeling, because like I did not expect it this quickly. The team needs them though.
I was frankly stunned when we got a 1 to 2 week timeline for it, because I set myself up and was bracing for we'll reevaluate him in 3 to 4 weeks, and potentially stretching even longer. Now, you mentioned how he has this history of quick healing. Soft tissue is certainly something different. And there was just a story out there. I think The Athletic was doing it too, looking at all of the soft tissue injuries that have started to pop up more and more in the NBA. Everybody has a theory on why it's happening. I mean, I think the easy things to point to, which are valid, is the schedule and how much the game has changed. Because even if you're a big, and this is where we're seeing it too with Giannis and Wemby and some other guys, you have to cover so much ground. It's not just running to the free throw line and back, and that's basically all you have to worry about. You're covering the whole length of the floor. So yeah, there's a lot. I was wondering too, and unfortunately Pat Morita has passed. It was 20 years ago that we lost Mr. Miyagi, but his passing was 20 years ago to the day yesterday. So I was wondering if maybe we channeled some of Mr. Miyagi working on Danielson to fix Giannis's issue that he's working with here. And that's how he got ready, just as he prepared Danielson for the All Valley tournament. Such a quick heal there. But yeah, it's got to be one of those things of like, okay, man, I hope he's 110% if this is the case and coming out here, because I think we're all going to just watch of like, what's the minutes limit that he's going to be on? Does he have the same burst? Do I need to be nervous watching any contact that he takes here with this adductor strain? And this game, we mentioned it, this is the more important one, because I think the Bucks are unfortunately in the spot now. Unfortunate is probably the wrong way to term it here, but I think they're in a weird spot where they are the only team in their group for the NBA Cup that is unbeaten. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that you would say they're in the best spot of anyone out there. I mean, obviously not having Giannis, we think, is a big, big part of that. But you're 2-0. The Heat are 2-1. The Knicks are 1-1. So this is Miami's final game.
Yep.
And this is what makes it, to me, the must-win game. If you're going to split these games, I still struggle to see a scenario where the Bucks win their group. So it really feels like you got to win both of these games. But this one, especially, I think if you lose this to Miami, I do think it's over. So we'll get into why and take a look at those standings and where we're at in point differential and everything you need to know in regards to the NBA Cup and whether or not the Bucks can keep this streak going, coming up next on Locked On Bucks. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Say yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint Mobile makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. Getting the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price, a fraction of that price. Setup is super easy. You keep your number, and then you're up and running in minutes. So if you're ready to say yes to say no, make the switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That is mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, so the Bucks, as we noted, are 2-0. The Heat are 2-1. Knicks are 1-1. Bulls and Hornets each have 2 losses. We have not seen a team win or advance to the knockout rounds, I should say, with 2 losses in the previous 2 years of the Cup. So with that in mind, the Pacers, the Wizards, the Nets, the Celtics, the Sixers, the Bulls, and the Hornets are all out of this. I think it's pretty safe to assume. Raptors are the only team that's advanced so far, and they were in, I suppose I would say, one of the more difficult groups. Theirs is interesting because it's very top heavy, but Toronto, but Toronto started by beating the Cavs and the Hawks. So their final 2 games were the Pacers and the Wizards, and I think their 3 wins are the Cavs, Hawks, and Wizards. So they just have the Pacers left. They've already clinched that group, and they're plus 53 in point differential with a bad team remaining. So they are very likely going to be the number 1 seed in this. And then you look at some things like, okay, point differential for your tiebreakers and wild cards. Like, let's say you suffer a loss, you go 1-1. Could you get in as the wild card? Hawks are plus 33 in point differential. Pistons are plus 27. Magic are plus 20. Those 2 teams still play each other the same night that the Bucks play the New York Knicks. But both of those teams are in a better spot than you. And then in your group, the Bucks and the Heat are the only 2 teams with a positive point differential, but Miami is plus 46 in their 3 games so far. And that was the Bulls game, wasn't it?
Yep.
Where they just drubbed them and ran up that point total. They beat the Hornets by a wide margin as well. And again, Bucks beat the Hornets by 13, but because it was in overtime, it counts for 0. You just get the win. So that kind of puts you behind the 8 ball as well. And why I say I don't see a scenario where the Bucks, unfortunately, would advance if they don't go 2-0 here is, let's say you lose tomorrow to Miami. You're 2-1. Miami finishes at 3-1. If you beat the Knicks are going to have 2 losses. So then it comes down to the Bucks and Heat are tied. The Heat beat you. So you're out in that scenario in terms of winning your group. And you're probably, if you lose to Miami, you're probably not going to have nowhere near enough in point differential to get that wild card. If you beat Miami and Miami goes to 2-2, but then you lose to the Knicks, same thing. That the Knicks potentially would finish this thing at 3-1. And they have the head-to-head over you. So New York still has, I believe, it's Charlotte, I believe. And that is tomorrow night that they are playing. So, I mean, look, if Charlotte can do you a solid and beat the Knicks and you can win tomorrow, then it sets up a very, very interesting scenario where, I mean, you could either advance as the 3-1 team or you could be in a much better spot for the wild card as well. But it's going to take a lot of help from the outside, where this isn't last year when you approach your last game or so and said, they're still in a pretty good spot because of their point differential. That's gone. I don't see the Bucks catching the Cavs here, who are plus 33 right now. Cleveland is probably going to be your wild card team unless Orlando just does something big against the Pistons. So yeah, I think you got to win out to advance. Otherwise, the streak of advancing to the knockout rounds comes to an end.
Yeah, I think you laid out the case for group play beautifully. And if the Bucks do drop tomorrow's game, then you really start paying attention to what the last games are for Friday, because Black Friday is shaping up just to be an NBA Cup day. There's so many games on Friday.
Black Friday's a day, especially with Amazon. Like, they are going through, I think they have the Skins game for all the golf fans.
Yep.
They have the Black Friday Bears-Eagles game, and then they're going directly into NBA after that.
Like, there's so much going on Black Friday outside of all of the shopping, which Black Friday shopping isn't even as good as it used to be, but that's not what we're here to talk about. The wild card of the NBA Cup, and like then you're watching like the Hawks, you're watching Orlando to see what they do, because in Group B, as you mentioned, like if you have 2 losses already, you're probably out. So in Group B, it is the Pistons, the Magic, the Nets, the Celtics, and the Sixers. Brooklyn, Boston, and Philly have all lost 2 games already. You have Detroit and Orlando that are 2-0, and then those 2 teams, as you mentioned, they play on Friday against one another. Detroit has a plus 27 point differential. Orlando has a plus 20 right now. And then you take a look at Group A, and it's like, okay, well then your comp there could possibly be Cleveland or Atlanta for a wild card. Atlanta's point differential is only plus 8 right now, and they still have Washington and Cleveland to play. Meanwhile, Cleveland's point differential is plus 33. So there would be a little hope, a glimmer of hope for the Bucks if they do drop this game against the Heat, but it's going to require, as you mentioned, help elsewhere. But I think there still could be a door open for them if they find a way to not get the game in Miami tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, Cleveland play each other yet. So that's the interesting one that's remaining, because Cleveland is plus 33. That's their only game left. So if Atlanta wins that game, Cleveland has 2 losses, and Cleveland is out of the mix in all likelihood. Atlanta has the Wizards, I believe, tomorrow, and then Cleveland on Friday. So they have potential to finish 3-1 and really do you a solid there, because they're only plus 8 in point differential. So I think, number one, if you're not going to win out, you have to win the game tomorrow against the Miami Heat. Otherwise, basically every other scenario sees you and the Heat finishing 3-1 and Miami winning by way of tie or head-to-head there. I think the next step is you need Atlanta to beat Cleveland, to take Cleveland out of the mix with their plus 33 point differential. And right now your point differential is higher than Atlanta's. I think you also need the Pistons to beat the Magic, and to do so convincingly. To drop that. And the big thing for the Bucks is, if you're not going to win both these games and we just get into now we got to hope for some help here, you basically have to lose by 2 points. Like you have no margin. It's kind of like what we've talked about watching the team on the court. The margin for error just isn't there. Like you can't lose by 15 points, by 12 points, any of that. That's going to take you out of the mix, even if you go 1-1.
And I'll say one thing, Chris, someone might be listening and be like, who cares about the cup? Like if a team is out, who cares? But one thing I do love.
We care. You're the reigning champions.
I'm a fan of the NBA Cup. But what I like about it, in addition to all the pageantry and the courts and all of the stuff and the tournament and the stakes feeling high, is that these games are still regular season games. So like teams ain't going out here of like, okay, we have no chance in the cup now, so we're not going to play hard in this game, because overall it's a regular season game. It's going to affect the standings. So like there is still a level of, all right, we got to go out here and try to put our best foot forward regardless of where else we're at. So another reason why I love the NBA Cup, because even these teams that we were just talking about that are 0-2 right now in their group play, Philly, Charlotte, Washington, Indiana, they're not going to get into these last, 2 games or 1 game, depending on where they're at, and just be like, we're going to mail it in. Like they're going to still play. So there's going to be some hope. It's just who you going to put your hope in for those games.
Look, and there's more hope if Giannis is on the court tomorrow, today, whenever this is that you're listening to this. So it is worth noting, hey, that's interesting, because when I first saw the text come through from the team, here's the injury report. I saw Antetokounmpo, and then I had to do like a double take because I was just looking at it, the preview window on your phone where you get the iMessage come through. Like, wait, that was Antetokounmpo, and kept scrolling and like, oh, Giannis is questionable. Okay, maybe this is interesting. So if he plays, all right, let's see if we can push this to 11-0 in the cup and where it goes from there, because, what you notice too is, to round out this entire discussion, all the pieces just fit when Giannis is in there. Like, he's the North Star for this team. The good Kuz games, not a coincidence. They have come with Giannis available and on the floor. Ryan Rollins has been much more impactful defensively and is much better as your secondary offensive player. You're seeing more and more threes, like the volume of threes and open looks for guys. So everything has fit better. I don't know if I'd say everything's fit perfectly, but everything's fit better with Giannis on the floor. And Miami's rolling. I mean, that's the other thing. The top of the standings in the East, it is 26 game win streak combined between the top three seeds. I think 13 from the Pistons, 8 from the Raptors, and now 5 from Miami. So they're rolling. You're going to be tested, but look, whenever you got Giannis on the floor, I like my chances in games, I think, that we've seen so far this season. So we'll see if that carries over into this game later on tonight in Miami, and certainly keep an eye on the injury report throughout the day. I don't anticipate it to change at all. I think Giannis is going to remain listed as questionable leading up to the game, and then we'll know around 5 o'clock when Doc Rivers addresses the media here in Miami with the status of Giannis. The last thing I'll mention here, I know we're gonna. What would you say? Half the audience is, I don't care about the NBA Cup. Who cares? So for the other half of you, we see you and hear you, and this is for you. You know the most interesting group to me, Camille?
What?
Group C in the West.
Let me take a look. West C.
But don't look just yet.
Okay, hold on.
Because
take my hands up.
the team that is set up to win that is the Portland Trailblazers. They got one game left. They're 2-1. That game is against the Spurs, and I believe Spurs are still playing without Wemby.
Yep.
But it's interesting because the Blazers at 2-1, their 2 wins were against the Nuggets and the Warriors. They won those games by a combined total of 6 points. Their one loss was to the Houston Rockets by 24 points. So they could win this thing and finish with a negative point differential.
That would be do you know off the top of your head, has that I don't think that's happened.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't.
History.
I don't believe so.
I mean, we're only this is the third year of it.
This is the third iteration of it. I mean, I suppose we could quickly pull it up and see like what was
that
the Cup standings. Yeah, I don't know. That has never happened, that we've had a team with a negative point differential win their group in the NBA Cup. And that's just the closest we came was, I think, a couple of teams finished +8. But unless they beat San Antonio by 17, 19, they're going to finish with a negative point differential. Wow. and likely win their group in the NBA Cup. That Portland team too. We talked about it coming into this stretch and said, I think Philly's gettable. I think Portland's gettable. And you certainly would look at Brooklyn and even Washington and say, like, these are teetering on non-negotiables that you're going to have to win these. You drop those two, that, the Philly game was definitely gettable.
Yep.
Portland, I'll say this. I think it's easy to look at them, and this isn't to make an excuse for how the Bucks looked. They were flat. But it's easy to look at and say, well, 6 guys out of the lineup. You need to win that game. Sure, but Portland has also done this to a couple other teams, even in this stretch with guys out. And the big difference is just what we talked about at the top of the show. Yeah, Drew Holiday is out. And Shaedon Sharpe is out, right? Scoot Henderson is out.
Mm-hmm.
The Blazers offense at this point is initiated and goes through Denny Avdia. And you've seen, I'm not saying he's, upper echelon, but Jeremy Grant had the ability to do that as well, that they are still in a better spot than the Bucks in terms of offensive creators and initiators, even with those guys out. So I still think it's a game you needed to win and you should have won, but I don't think it's the absolute disaster that it was made out to be.
No, I think people are just tired of losing. When
and rightfully so.
Yeah, as losses stack up, the frustration levels get higher. So I definitely understand it. And again, that was a disappointing game where it's just like, man, I knew it would be tough, but I didn't expect it to be this tough without Giannis. So I get it. and on top of that, like the Blazers were on the second night of a back-to-back. They had
that was the toughest part. Yeah,
by the Thunder themselves on Sunday before they came to Milwaukee on Monday. So it's like just expect a little bit more from this Bucks team, and I know they do in themselves. So like they just kind of dust that off. You start winning again, things feel a little bit different.
Because the margin was what it was, they did rest their regulars, their starters, for a decent amount. Like I don't think anybody in their starting lineup played more than 25 minutes against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but nonetheless, you still had a rest advantage, and those are the types of things you're going to need to take advantage of. I won't name who it was, but I was talking with somebody after the game yesterday, and they had mentioned, like, man, when was the last time this team lost 5 in a row? Like, I can't even remember that. And I just, well, now you're doing it too, Camille, because I just, like, without pause, just looked at them dead in the eyes and said, do you not remember 12 months ago? This team started 2-8. They won their first game and then lost either 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, I mentioned that after the loss to, gosh, it's been so many, Justin, stacking up. I can't even get all the losses together. The one before Portland, so was that the Sixers game, I think it was? Oh, Pistons. Yeah. Dropped to 8-9. So the funny thing is, the Bucks were 8-9 last season too. At this point, after 6 or
felt different.
It felt way different.
It was the inverse.
It felt way different. So start 4-1 this season, and now you're 8-10, and it's like, that's tough. What I will say, because I know we're getting late here, what I'm looking forward to doing on Locked On Bucks as November closes is kind of looking back at the month of November, because this whole month so far has not been the best for the Bucks. So kind of just identifying trends from the month and things that
you would say that it hasn't been the best. Okay,
it hasn't been the best. No, not the best.
I was just having this discussion with somebody about a week ago and said, it was Tuesday. It was the Tuesday when the announcement came on Giannis's update that I was texting with this person and said, like, man, that Warriors game was like 2.5 weeks ago. It feels like a lifetime ago already.
Yeah. Because that was when I was out of office for the Warriors game, and I was so excited. Seeing that they were able to win, which gave me a little hope of like, hey, they can weather this stretch too without Giannis. And again, it has not. It's been worse than expected.
All right. Well, leave your thoughts on what we had to say on today's show. I would imagine there's going to be a decent amount of pushback that this is even worse than you projected and imagined. I'm guessing that's going to be the consensus feeling out there in the comments, but by all means, let us know if you disagree with anything said here, your thoughts on these 2 games in the NBA Cup. I mean, I suppose we'll ask for it too. Like, do you care about the NBA Cup? I understand it's different with Giannis's health being more important, but remove that from the equation. And how do you feel about the Cup and the Bucks potentially defending that as well? We'll have the recap of hopefully the end to this losing streak and the 3rd game in the NBA Cup group play for the Bucks coming your way either late Wednesday night or early Thanksgiving morning. So TBD on when we're going to record that one, but we will definitely get a recap of that game coming your way. And I think we're tentatively planning on having a show on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving as well, but we'll just see. If there's no updates or anything that changes, then we may indulge and take a day off ourselves. But that'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.